Hello, I'm Emma Green and welcome to the Virtual Engineering Centre podcast, Engineering in Digital. In this first episode, we'll be exploring Industrial Digitalisation. If you know what that means, great, but if not, that is exactly what we're here for. Industry 4.0 technologies can include IoT, artificial intelligence, big data and analytics, advanced robotics, 3D printing, and sensors, for example. We not only see more and more of these in our everyday lives, but businesses are really starting to look into how these can be used to streamline processes, develop products, overcome business challenges, and remain competitive. In this episode, we are joined by expert in the field, Andrew Borland, Head of Commercialisation at the Virtual Engineering Centre. So welcome Andrew, and thank you so much for joining me today. Can you give our listeners a quick introduction to yourself and what it is you do?
Hi, I'm Andrew Borland. I'm Head of Commercial at the Virtual Engineering Centre. One of my biggest roles at the VEC is leading the commercial delivery of our work in the northwest of England, delivering projects to support small and medium-sized enterprises with Industry 4 and Industrial Digitalisation. As well as that, we work with local governments and industry partners and also academics to help them bridge the gap between university research and industry adoption.
So digital is all around and there is simply no escaping it, regardless of who you are and where you work. Our mobile phones and tablets all help us to stay connected whilst collecting all types of data that can enhance convenience being offered to us by companies. Even toys at Christmas have dramatically changed, with more and more seeing headsets in our living rooms, and now Apple bring a digital catalogue to your home using AR technologies. So, to get us started, can you tell us exactly what is meant by industrial digital technologies and what do these mean for businesses?
So industrial digital technologies are the technologies of Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution. It's a combination of hardware and software that will help us improve productivity, efficiency and innovation in industries from manufacturing to logistics to professional services and beyond. Technological change is nothing new, from sort of transition from steam engine to electrical power and to the mass production of the Ford era and more recently kind of the microprocessor revolution of the 70s and 80s. We in our lifetime we've kind of embraced computer-aided design and software on the desktop and moved from fax machines to Teams. So technology is always changing. But Industry 4 technologies or IDT technologies are things like robotics, industrial IoT, simulation, big data, artificial intelligence, visualizations, immersive experiences. So bringing together sort of technologies that can help us within business do things differently.
So out of those technologies listed within Industry 4.0, where do you see the biggest growth for technology adoption, and which are delivering the greatest impact to businesses looking to digitalise their current processes?
It's difficult to narrow it down to one technology because every business is different and each company will have its own sort of unique set of challenges. And the technologies are also largely interconnected. So when you adopt one, you frequently find that to get best value out of it, you need to adopt another technology. So automation and robotics go hand in hand. Complex simulation and visualization often go hand in hand. But for me, artificial intelligence is probably the most ubiquitous. AI can be applied to everything in different ways. So to everything from optimizing scheduling and operations to vision algorithms that can detect faults in finished products, or software that can predict quality issues before they happen based on sort of real-time analysis of things like vibration, temperature and noise from machine tools. AI tools can also vary in cost and complexity. So at a very basic level, you can think of a predictive keyboard app on your phone as being vaguely AI. It'll cost you a few pence on an app store. At the other extreme, you can look at software that will analyze tens of thousands of data points every hour from across a factory to optimize operations and prevent those quality issues coming up. So AI is probably the number one for me, because there are so many great products out there at different price points that can offer real value to businesses. The one thing that AI can't provide, though, is a replacement for the experience and the creativity and ingenuity of your staff. So AI will always be a tool to support people rather than a tool to replace people. You're looking at freeing up staff from the mundane sort of low value work within the business to give them an opportunity to work on the higher margin, more creative, more fulfilling stuff.
So you've mentioned to me that these technologies are frequently connected to one another and can be used alongside together. So taking AI as the example, which other digital technologies complement and are often used alongside AI?
So one example of another industrial digital technology that's frequently paired with AI is IoT, or an Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things connected device. So these can take all shapes and sizes. Some can be used inside the factory on the shop floor. Others can be included in products that go out to market. Vex worked with a number of different businesses that have looked at adding IoT technology to their products, and also of then using the data that those connected devices, those IoT devices, generate, and using their communications links to feed AI algorithms and provide predictive or preventative insights. So a couple of good examples of that. One is SatSafe Limited. SatSafe was a Northwest SME that came to us to explore how simulation could be used to help them refine algorithms in their vehicle black box technologies. So looking at connected devices in the car, in the cab, dash cams and vehicle black boxes that you're familiar with from the insurance industry, and then refining those algorithms to get better insight by using some of our expertise in simulation. Another good example is IPS, International Pheromone Systems, so a company that produces pheromone laws for bug traps, and was looking at creating a new product line of smarter bug traps and smarter devices. IoT allowed them to connect those products, and that creates an entirely new dimension for the business as far as predicting demand goes, optimizing, kind of collecting traps, and then even potentially in the future more complicated things about looking at weather patterns to detect where the demand will be in future.
So UK manufacturers are leading the way in automation uptake across key processes when compared with the national average, and the manufacturer publication claimed that more than 90% of firms in the manufacturing sector have adopted automated processes during 2019, which we know during 2020 in lockdown and COVID-19 this uptake and adoption rates have risen. So for a little more context, can we look at a few real-world examples of industrial digital technologies? So Andrew, can you tell us how businesses are using these technologies to diversify their businesses?
Yeah, so each technology will have a number of different use cases. If we stick with the AI example, one nice use case of AI is to provide semi-automation through natural language processing software of things like the quotation process. So if you're a business that regularly gets lots of requests for quotes on work or materials, we know that the faster you respond to kind of one of those day-to-day inquiries, the more likely you are to land the work, because it's probably you and a number of other businesses that have been asked for a price. So how can you speed up that process without sort of inflating wage roll of putting more people on the phones, more people on desktops to quote on work? Well, you can use AI. AI software can read incoming emails, whether it's a request for a quote in the body of an email or a PDF. The software can then go off and estimate what materials are needed for the job and what skill sets and processes are needed within the business. It can look at a planning software, your ERP system, look at your stores, find out whether materials are there, find out whether there's actually space to put it on as a job. And then it can look at accounting software and estimate the price for the job and produce a pro forma response for a human operator to then read and be able to sort of click yes or no and send the response out to the person making the inquiry. So you connect lots of different systems with AI. You provide a user interface, a human interface at the front end for the customer. You augment the ability of your administrative and clerical staff with the power of AI, but you also then sort of stray into system integration as you start bringing your ERP system and Sage and sort of logistics partners portals together to bring all those different data feeds together, so you can give an automated response in a way that would take a human operator 15, 20, 30 minutes to check different systems and key up an email. It can be done automatically in a few seconds, with the human having the ultimate power of pressing send or correcting the response before it goes out.
So we've touched on a couple of industrial digital technologies, but there are quite a few, and for many businesses the first question is where to start. Often businesses hear the phrase digital transformation and that they need to plan for this. So what exactly is meant by digital transformation, and how are the VEC supporting businesses on their own digital journeys?
So digital transformation is this kind of application of the industrial digital technology. So we've talked briefly about AI and IoT, but there are obviously lots more IDT technologies, and there are countless number of use cases and applications which will all be different and vary from company to company. So digital transformation is kind of more the business thinking side. So how is your business going to prepare for the future? How are you going to remain competitive? And what's the strategy or the plan for utilising these new emerging technologies in a way that works for you? So there's generally kind of a number of steps you want to go through. One is at board level, this idea of setting a vision and a strategy. You know where you are today. You do a little bit of research and try and get a feel and an understanding for what technologies are available today and what are going to become available in the near future, and think about what they could do for you within the business. How could you apply them in a way that will help you become more competitive, more efficient, produce things at lower prices, innovate new products. You look around and you kind of see what competitors are doing and which way the industry is going, and then you set that vision from where you are at the moment to where you want to be. That's your digital strategy bit, and then comes your digital transformation exercise, which is the proof of concept and the implementation of change within the company. That can be anything from using the digital technology to exploit new opportunities, to using them to improve efficiency, productivity, to deal with issues internally. And there's sort of two stages to digital transformation. One is the low-hanging fruit of digitization, of taking existing analog sort of pen and paper processes or processes within the business and implementing technologies to improve them. So you're not really changing what you're doing. You're improving the process with technology, but the underlying business process stays the same. And then the next step, the kind of the real advantage is through digitization. So what is digitalization? Digitalization is the next step after digitization. So with digitization, we're just using technology to change an existing process. So if somebody's filling out a form with pen and paper on a clipboard and handing it to a clerical office to put in an Excel spreadsheet, you could digitize that by replacing it with an iPad app or something like that. Digitalization is more about disrupting existing processes. So in that example, you could look at something like an IoT connected device, which makes the need for that function within the business redundant because the technology is automatically collecting the data. So digitization is changing analog processes to digital ones, and it's your first step in the journey. Digitalization is then being able to say, okay, well, with the technology we've got, what processes internally can we change? And those two things put together, along with some innovative thinking over kind of what your future product line is going to be, or what you want the business to look like in future, comes together to form your complete digital transformation journey. Digital transformation is not a one-off process. That the companies that we work with in northwest of England, we engage with them, and whilst it starts off at that kind of board level strategy vision setting, and then the operational sort of evaluating what the technology can do, and we work with companies to develop small proof of concepts within the business to help them validate technologies before they invest in it or change their working practices wholesale. it's an iterative process, so you always want to come back to it. You set your strategy and you set your digital transformation plan in motion, but you will learn lessons along the way. You will collect feedback. Culture change is a big thing within businesses, is getting the workforce engaged and understanding the potential of the technology and why you're making changes. And as that kind of gradual process occurs, it'll give you new insights. As you talk to customers, you'll understand friction points and what their appetite is for innovation and change in their kind of user experience or their customer experience. You'll be able to kind of gradually get a better feel from staff as to where the technology can be used. So digital transformation's a project or a process you need to start, but it's an ongoing thing. It's an iterative thing that you're constantly feeding new information back into the planning cycle and changing your plans and hopefully improving the business.
So that's episode 1. Unfortunately, we've run out of time on this quick crash course in industrial digital technologies, but I'd like to say a huge thanks to Andrew Borland for joining me today. But very quickly, lastly, for those businesses who are listening and are interested in how such technologies can be utilised within their own businesses, what would you say are the next steps?
So if you're in the UK, there are lots of support programs available and lots of support from both sort of universities, from government initiatives and from private sector. If you're in the northwest of England, VEC is currently leading on 3 fully funded support packages. The C&W 4.0 project for businesses in Cheshire and Warrington, LCR for Start, which is our digital strategy project in Liverpool City region, which is open not just to manufacturing businesses but businesses from any sector. And then we have our LCR holistic project, which is our innovation in supply chain project. So VEC has 11 years of experience of working with SMEs. Frequently this kind of industrial digital technology thing and the frameworks associated with it are very much aimed at big businesses, but there's some great support available in the northwest from ourselves, but also nationally in different regions from other partner organisations that is really focused on the SME journey. The process of digital transformation for SMEs is very different from that of large organisations. So if you are an SME, where do you start? One would be to kind of look at what's out there as far as information in your trade publications goes and from what people in other businesses in your line of work are doing. And the second sort of step I'd say is engage with someone like ourselves at VEC. There is funded support out there from specialists that do this with lots of different businesses. We've between the collaborators on our ERDF projects, we've probably worked with 500 businesses in the last 5 years, and we can come in, we can do that digital transformation piece for you, and you can get access to the knowledge and the expertise, try out the technologies and the software in our laboratories here in Daresbury and in Liverpool, and hopefully sort of de-risk that innovation journey for you and help you pull together your own plan and strategy for digital transformation and proof some of the technologies firsthand within the company.
Thanks, Andrew. All links to all projects and contact details can be found here in our bio underneath the podcast for anyone interested in getting involved or for any further questions. A huge thanks again to Andrew for talking with us today and for all who've tuned in to listen. Join us next time on the Virtual Engineering Centre podcast, Engineering in Digital.